Hello, everybody. This is Martin John, and we are continuing with our Tao. This is chapter two. The title of chapter two is Identifying the Manifestation. Just off the top, I mean, if we look at that title, Identifying the Manifestation, it's really about being able to identify what is manifestation and what is me. I think when we start thinking about what is it we identify as, it's important to understand that that which we identify as is probably manifestation. But let's get into this and read it up and see what it says. Once again, we'll read through it, we'll read through it, and then we'll kind of go through it line by line and try and talk a little bit about what the significance is of all of this. Opposites exist among the particular. Identifying the beautiful creates the ugly. Identifying good creates evil. Identifying the particular separates all manifestation. Reality and fantasy are opposing thoughts. Difficult and easy are opposing degrees. Long and short are opposing perceptions of time and space. Because of this, the master doesn't rely on words. She teaches by being without explanation. In this way, she is the most helpful. She inspires all things to be without rejecting them. She gives them life but refuses to possess them. Her actions spring forth from perfection. They are not hers to own. Thus, they will never be forgotten. So there's something in the middle here that really kind of popped out at me. Let me see if I can find it. She teaches without being, she teaches by being without explanation. And remember yesterday or chapter one, if you had just listened to that, because of this, the master doesn't rely on words. Chapter one talked about this idea that, hey, words can't do it. Words can't express Tao. And you are Tao. And so what you do and who you are can't be expressed through mere words. We run around trying to give the whys of everything. Well, I'm sad because, or I'm happy because, or I'm ecstatic because, I'm all of this because. but but all of those becauses are things that we're using our mind to sort of create, and the judgments that have come in order to create those things. So identifying the particular separates all manifestation. That's another line in here that's like, once I've identified something particular, I'm separate from everything. So I identify that I'm happy, I identify that I'm sad, I identify something in particular. You know, reality and fantasy are opposite, are opposing thoughts. You know, it's in your mind, fantasy and reality. There's no separation here. It's the same. Your reality is a fantasy, and your fantasies become reality. Difficult and easy are opposing degrees. Is this hard? Is this easy? It doesn't really, they're the same. It just depends on how you measure it within the degrees of like hard and easy, right? I have these opposites we created them through what? Words, rather than it just being, this is what I'm doing right now. And it's taking me longer to do it than it takes me to do something else, or it's taking more effort or whatever. But once we have done that, once we have measured the effort it takes to do something, that's the degree that we're measuring difficult and easy. Oh, this takes more effort, and so it's more difficult. Okay. But why are you measuring effort? That's weird. Right? Like there's no reason to do that. Just do what you do. Do the next most obvious thing, no matter what that is. Long and short are opposing perceptions of time and space. Right? There are people that, I mean, for me, most mornings I'll walk 5 miles, and people are like, "Wow, that's really long. That's really far." Well, not for me. So that's not there's no distinction there. Right? There's no definition of long and short. That's all about you. It's all about how you are perceiving. And when you identify the particular, long or short, difficult or easy or real or fantasy, you're separating manifestation into two different things, into two different categories. And that's on you. Right? So it's about identifying the manifestation. Oh, wait, the manifestation is showing me that this is long and short, and that's part of my perception. I can step away from that and step away from perceiving that or perceiving it in that way. And I can just allow it to be what it is. So we're going to start reading through this again, and we'll kind of pause and see if we can kind of bring in any insight into these lines. Opposites exist among the particular. So within the manifestation, the particular exists, the particular thing. Like you and me are separate here in the manifestation. And so opposites are created. Identifying the beautiful creates the ugly. Identifying good creates evil. And that's what has been happening in our world for millennia. This idea that, oh, we have to define things, we have to measure them. When we started utilizing our frontal lobe more, what we did was move into a world of logic. And that world of logic, like, wants measurement. We want to measure. I mean, every program you like, start writing down, take pictures of yourself, measure your success, measure. And it's like, well, but if every day is success, and then people will come in, logical people will come in and say, well, if you don't have a destination, right? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. like all of that stupid stuff, right? Like all of that is like getting you on board for measuring so that we can measure you, and that's a control thing and all of these sorts of things. But this is really about like manifestation and you, right? You beyond manifestation, all things beyond just the manifestation of what you appear to be right now. So opposites exist among the particular. The more you identify, the more you become particular, the more there is an opposite of you. And that exists within you as well. It's just not being identified. It's happening. And that's why those people that are successful are so afraid of failure, because the more success they have, the more focus they have on this failure, the more failure they create. Identifying the particular separates all manifestations. So that's the thing. Like that's what once things manifest, all things are still the same. But once we identify a particular thing, we're creating, right? We're splitting things apart at their core. And we're saying, now this is this and this is this, when actually they were always the same thing. This is an action. No, this is a good action and this is a bad action. Well, no, it's just an action. That's all it is. This is just an experience I'm having. No, this is a good experience and this is a bad experience. And that we're ripping these things apart from one another. And we're identifying, right? Just like we did with ourselves. We ripped ourselves apart from everybody else and said, no, I am me. Right? I am not part of anything else. I have free will. It's like, well, kind of. But really, like, you're part of a bigger system. And you're continuing to identify why you do things rather than realizing that it's not you doing it. It's Tao, it's God or whatever. Like it's you're just here to have this experience. So release and have the experience. Identifying the particular separates all manifestations. Reality and fantasy are opposing thoughts. We start here because this is what a lot of people want to say. Well, I'm a realist and I think of it this way. It's just like, well, your reality is simply a fantasy, and your fantasy will become your reality. Right? Like, you've ripped those apart. You've separated those things so that you can measure them. Difficult and easy or opposing degrees, long and short or opposing perceptions of time or space. We've addressed those things. Because of this, the master doesn't rely on words. So, a lot of people start to come in at this point and say, well, we need words to communicate and da, da, da. And it's like, we don't really, right? Like we can sit quietly without words and communicate just fine. Yeah, we won't We won't come together to have wars, and we won't come together to maybe, advance technology and do things that like continue to separate reality, continue to separate things, rip things apart and create opposites. But this is what the teacher does. She teaches, the master doesn't rely on words. She teaches by being without explanation. In this way, she is the most helpful. Can you imagine helping somebody without telling them what the fuck to do? Can you imagine like being able to not have to open your mouth and be as most helpful? The idea that you have the answer, you have a solution, or you have information that someone else needs is ridiculous. They have it. They just need to have faith enough in themselves to be able to get it. But that's hard to do when you look out at the world and everything's been separated and you've lived your life separating everything. And you're like, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, this is this is that. Now everything is separate and everything is just out there. There used to be one thing, and then someone separated it, and then separated that. And then this is how we come up with the world that we see today. And being the most helpful is to be without explanation. Say, hey, let's see what happens. She inspires all things to be without rejecting them. So yeah, you go do what you do, and I will receive you in any case, right? Like I remember when I used to do talks at IOP programs, intensive outpatient programs for people in addiction services. I would go in and tell them straight up, like with these words, I don't care about your addiction. I care about you. And if you want to go out and use again, that's okay. I'm still going to care about you. I'm not going to care about your addiction, because the moment I care about your addiction, you can manipulate me. And everybody understood what that meant. If I care about something that you do, your going out and do it is going to affect me. And I can't have that, because I don't want to be affected by your actions. I want to love you regardless. So she inspires all things to be without rejecting them. She gives them life, but refuses to possess them. Tao is what gives us life, right? There's a verse in the Tao that says, life is a gift received from Tao. She gives us life, but she doesn't possess us, right? That's why we run around with this idea of like free will. I feel this way, and so this is why this happened. But we could do that without all of those identifiers. We can just feel these things without having to identify. And just be like, yeah, I'm sad today. Don't know why. Whatever. That's where I'm going to be. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be sad. And tomorrow I'll be better. Or tomorrow, see, boom, there I go. Even I want to separate these things. And I want to be like, this is this and this is that. This is a measurement. Tomorrow's going to be tomorrow. Right now, this is the moment. And if I say I'm feeling sad, that's identifying as well. This is the moment. This is what I'm feeling. This is where I'm at. Her actions spring forth from perfection. They are not hers to own. As we're talking about the master again. Her actions, the master's actions, spring forth from perfection. They are not hers to own. Thus, they will never be forgotten. When you can help somebody without giving them anything, you can inspire someone to be without wanting them to be anything special, without wanting them to be anything else, you will be remembered. And the actions that you took, they might not be able to be pinpointed. It's like, this is what that person did, because the only time you can do that is when someone tells you something, when you start leaning on knowledge, leaning on those separations, leaning on those measurements. I was given this measurement. How silly. All right, that's chapter 2. Thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.